On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Try harder, faster, sooner. Starting earlier and believing in yourself. Who knows where I'd be if I'd started even earlier.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today, I have a guest, Jesse Summerlin, here on the King stage. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful, man. It's Monday. We were just going back and forth a little bit on a couple of different topics of business. I had to hurry up quick and hit the recording button because you were already talking about business basics and starting all kinds of businesses and getting me fired up. I had to hurry up and quick and do it, but I know you've got lots of things going on in your world, as do I. We're going to have an incredible conversation here today, but tell us what kind of businesses that you got, brother.
So the big one, the one that started the longest ago, and I suppose have had the most success, it would be a construction company. So that's Dwell Roofing and Exteriors, and we serve the DFW Metroplex.
Right.
From that, that's still going great, still growing it. And in the process, we've been doing some other businesses that are sort of related to it. So shoulder to shoulder, that kind of help the real estate. We have some rental properties in the Metroplex, picking up additional ones as sort of opportunities present themselves.
Yeah.
And then doing some STR stuff up in Oklahoma as well,
Awesome.
the VRBO, Airbnb stuff, which is, it's all kind of related in one way or another. Obviously, The construction company can help service the other ones, keep costs low, turnover, prioritize, and have a marketing agency as well.
Wow.
And this year we'll be adding an insurance component to things that'll kind of help, in my opinion, have everything pretty well-rounded where it's all helping each other. So some force multipliers, but kind of adjacent industries where it's all kind of growing now. And
yeah, I love actually. So not that this is like a super hidden thing, but sometimes when you're growing multiple businesses like that, what works, which you're doing, so I'm kind of more pointing out for the listener than anything, is that when you have an individual and you serve them with a remodel or a roof, or we were just talking about solar. I'm having solar installed here today. Actually, one of the guys in our Gathering the Kings Mastermind group, his company here, Royal Roofing and Solar in KC, woot woot. But all that to say, you've got this individual who has a lot of needs with their home or insurance or whatever. And so if you can develop a customer, which is what you've done, and then you recognize some of the other needs that maybe you can help them with, it's a good horizontal way to be able to grow your business. If especially if you've gone deep and you've kind of tapped the well, if you will, in your area with that one task, and now you can help that same customer. You don't have to grow the customer list anymore. You got the list.
Yep. Yeah.
So sell them another thing.
What we do typically is, at least the way we sell is, we're developing relationships. These are lifelong customers, it's a value add. So if we can have a full stack process where they're like, you are the guy that we go to for all of these things, it's great. So, apply the same kind of approach with doing the best that we can, giving them exactly what they need, but it's not the cheapest price. It's not the most expensive product. It's the best value. So giving them, once they're plugged in, they understand. They're like, look, the customers that we develop they're folks that understand, I might be paying a little bit more, but I'm getting a lot out of it. And, we can take them along and give them exactly what they need. It's been a good approach. It's sort of the long-term approach. And we're not trying to get in, get out, get paid. It's, we're doing the right thing, and the business follows. It's kind of, it seems like a no-brainer, but believe it or not, especially in like roofing or construction, there's a lot of competitors that hasn't seemed to click yet. So oddly enough, it's still unique, and it pays dividends. So
unfortunately, in those industries, really, I guess it's in all industries because we're people, but even in construction services, home services, there's just this lack of awareness that it's not, construction that I'm in, it's people that I'm in.
100%.
And when you understand that piece, then it's like, okay, now I can build a real relationship I can use certain soft skills that typically maybe are looked down upon. And so when you don't have those, then it becomes transactional. So when I can learn how to speak, when I can learn how to add value, when I can learn how to maybe even handhold, which is
Mhm.
really just meaning like you provide a premium experience at the end of the time. So yeah, they actually end up paying you more and they love it. They become
Yes.
raving fans, right? Like, I'm thankful that I paid you more because you took excellent care of me and I don't have to worry about you disappearing on me, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Especially in construction, especially in roofing and in solar. Solar's not like all across the country yet, but another industry where people just in and out, in and out, in and out, right?
100%. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. They trust us, and we have like I said, I mentioned the marketing component. We get a lot of new opportunities,
Yeah.
but our referrals are fantastic because, each one of our customers has had like a great time, a great experience. They're sort of screaming our names from the rooftop. Everybody likes having a guy, and we're their guy. So
Yeah.
it makes it really easy as long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So
Yeah, it's so unique too how you described how it's still unique to do business like this. You would have thought that more people caught on to this. What I have found actually is there's a lot of guests that I have on the show. We're coming up on 300 episodes, but a good majority, like I would say over 80, maybe even 90% of the guests, and then for sure everybody inside of our 7 and 8 figure mastermind group, we have this similarity where it's like I'm actually more concerned about doing it right, knowing that I'm going to be around forever, building something sustainable, something that matters to my family, something that I get to help you and then not just transact and be gone, but like I'm your guy. Like all these things that you're talking about, it's like this grateful but not done kind of language that we use within Gathering the Kings. We're just regular guys, but we're like crushing it, you know?
it seems like a no-brainer once the sort of the light bulb was going off, but and at first it might not seem like it's paying off, but
Right.
sticking to it, you start, it's like rolling that little snowball over time. It
Yeah.
keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's right.
And after a couple years, it might feel like grinding away, but oh my gosh, does it pay dividends, because you get that critical mass, and then all of a sudden everything starts coming back and you're like, this is it. This is, I'm glad I stuck to it.
That's
And,
right.
the proof is in the pudding, and it doesn't happen overnight, but then once it starts coming in, you're just like, it almost
Right.
seems obvious.
Yeah. It is.
Worth
It
sticking
is.
to it.
It's just funny how, like, what you're saying is that it's only obvious when it's obvious. It seems obvious now, but because when we started, it just felt right. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of people that aren't thinking long term is really what it comes down to. So
Yep.
we've kind of tapped on this question already. We've gotten into some really good stuff like super fast here, which is great. My first question is always around the why, a deeper purpose. We've kind of danced around this even a little bit around, I mean, why you're building certain things and doing it with integrity and all these things. But at the end of the day, Jesse, you've been successful is the point. But yet you're still building. You're opening up new divisions of your companies or portfolio companies this year even. You're here on the podcast. Why? Why are you doing all this even after all your success?
So one, I'm pretty competitive, and it's not even necessarily competing with other people. It's competing with myself. So
Yeah,
I like to, I'm always kind of trying to push outside my comfort zone, set goals, and then achieve those goals, and then push further. I don't want to limit myself. I back in the day, you kind of learn the hard way, I think. And fortunately, over time, I've kind of learned that a lot of the things that were inhibiting growth were my own issues or proclivities or whatever you want to call it. And as I've gotten older and kind of really, you can hit up against walls, after a while, as long as you have that mindset and you continue to try and learn and grow,
right.
the proof is in the pudding. Again, I don't want it to sound cliche or whatever, but even if it's small wins, those sort of build on each other. And, remodeling my first house, and then just seeing like, oh my gosh, I can do that. And then the dividends that it paid, and then just finding something new, some new goal to achieve. And then it continues to build, and like, okay, well, I can do that. That was a piece of cake. It seemed like an insurmountable task, but
Right.
I got it. So let's try something harder. Let's aim the sights higher.
That's right.
And it keeps going. So the competitiveness with myself, that's a big deal. It's also fun for me. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm like a glutton for pain, but I really enjoy doing these things.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat, and I'm my own boss. So being able to be the captain of my own ship sort of steering the outcome of things. I like to be a doer, not to have things done to me. So
Yeah.
it's,
A lot of relatable things there. I think that the listener can pull out and go, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. I know I heard several things in there that I can agree with as well. It's funny that that little piece of glutton for pain. I just settled in my spirit maybe a few, 2, 3, 5 years ago. I don't know, but I'm just putting language to it in the last probably 2 years that I'm a builder, and okay, fine. Yes. Whether that could be actual remodels that one of my portfolio companies does or real estate. We've done flips or we've built, projects, but I'm a builder. Just like when you define what a builder is, building teams, building businesses, building individuals, building leaders, building my wife, building my children. Like I'm just a builder. And guess what? It's just difficult. It sounds fun. Like, oh, Chaz, you're a builder. Like, that's great. But really what it is that I love the process because there's a lot of components that go into building. There's a lot of like good days and bad days and like some things that move the needle a little bit and some things that move the needle a lot of bit. And you're like, whoa, that was awesome. And then it's like you get smacked in the face again. So it's like there's this really clear dynamic of what you said, a little bit of pain, but I kind of like it, So it's another challenge one after the other. And so I'm just resonating to I'm a builder. This is what I do in every aspect of my life. And actually, you probably relate to this. Let me know what you think. But when I like settled that, then I was like, just okay. I was like, I'm not upset about the default or the pain in the moment. I just know it's part of the process of building something. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes you can get smacked in the face on something. There's always losses, especially when you're sort of pushing that boundary or getting outside your comfort zone.
That's right.
Those are great learning opportunities. But, every once in a while, if you're just like, because you can't always be positive and happy and like on all the time. It's, we're all human. That's not really the case. It might appear that way for some folks, but reality, the background of it is no, that's not it. Every once in a while you need an easy win. And for me you as a builder, I like things that are tangible. So literally building something with my hands and seeing the result going from nothing to something.
Right.
That's great because I've showed myself I've made progress, and it helps rebuild that momentum to get sort of back at it and, pat myself on the back. So it's good. It's necessary. But I love doing it and creating things, especially from nothing, whether it's a concept or whatever. It's a lot of fun and it's very rewarding. So
that's right. Yeah. It's that reward, physically or not. Cause I definitely don't put myself in a category of a handy individual. So you creating something with your hands looks different. For me, I'm creating something usually with my mind or maybe some energy, of putting things together, but it's still the same thing.
Mhm.
Whether it's someone else in a portfolio company doing the work and me looking at it going, "Ooh, that's beautiful. We did that." Right? Like maybe it was my thought, my vision, but and you did the craftsmanship and that's great. And together we're in it. But it's that it is the reward. You're right. And that's why we keep coming back over and over because the reward is greater than the pain. And so, all right, I want to get into your story, man. Like you got a lot going on. You've given us already like just nugget after nugget after nugget. We could stop the podcast right now and somebody could just be like, dude, that guy was awesome. So I want to know, just give us a little bit of the journey. Like, how did you start a business? How's it unfolded? Give us a couple minutes just on your story.
So if I take you way, way back from the very beginning,
Yeah.
I would say, believe it or not, I'm not an extrovert. I would say I'm more of an introvert or maybe somewhere in the middle, but certainly not an extrovert. If I'm in like a group of people trying to network with strangers or whatever, although I'm having fun, although I'm, pushing myself out there, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And, starting from very little league, I, to raise money, we're selling candy bars, single digits,
Yep.
the little guy getting out there trying to get people to give me money for something that they didn't ask for.
That's
and it's tough, especially when you're a little guy talking to adults or whatever, trying to get their money. But like the experience of something simple like that, where, I could go door to door and knock a couple dozen doors, maybe get a couple candy bars, but you're developing your pitch, you're learning to get outside your comfort zone. You're learning simple things like that. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's sort of fish with dynamite. So post up at the grocery store and with a little booth and have the customers come to me and then sell some stuff. But like
a bit of leverage.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it. was terrifying for me. And, but it was a great learning experience. And
Yeah.
taking a little experience like that at that sort of age and seeing that, again, you're getting something tangible, like, holy moly, like, look what's happening. Like, this is really great. It was something I didn't want to do or didn't think I could do, but now I've
right.
done it. And literally my whole life has been something sort of along those lines, starting a little lawn mowing company before I was old enough to just get a real job.
Right.
And, then it sort of builds on that kind of stuff. And plus, I'm all over the place. And on this podcast, I'll probably be all over the place. Got a little bit of ADD. I am dyslexic. So I've had to kind of overcome certain,
Yeah.
you'd consider them obstacles. But honestly, I to reframe it, I consider them more of an asset, because as a result, having to compensate for certain things, I've naturally developed skills that other people might not have. And
That's right.
it makes it, those sort of things make it easier, even just simply reframing it and not using it as an excuse to not do well, kind
That's
of, flip it around and try and do more with it. Going back to the kind of, I'm all over the place in college, or it was between high school, college, you know, I was I was making some money, had jobs, having fun. They're like, what can I do to get a little bit extra beer money or something like that? I Late night infomercial. So they're selling like some garbage, 100 knives for $100. I'm like, okay, this seems like a great idea. I bought the knives. I was bored. I did a couple Craigslist posts, and I sold
You
this
flipped 'em.
box of junky knives and swords and whatever. And I probably 10x my money. It wasn't anything other than sort of an experiment. I
That's
do
right.
not recommend doing this. And it was a complete waste of my time. But it was interesting. I learned a lot from it. And just little experiences like that, as you kind of are on the entrepreneurial path,
Yeah. You're building a
you
history.
learn a lot from them. So I would say any experience, even if it's like ridiculous or mundane, you're learning something from it, especially if it's a failure. The failures, I would say I've learned a lot from those. Those are the ones that the painful things are the ones you remember, that stick with you most. You're not having to do it a lot of times
That's right.
in order for it to really make an impact. So I don't consider a failure losing. I honestly, I consider it sort of an asset. It's something, maybe a wound or a scar. It's a good story to tell, and it's a good thing to remember, because you're probably not going to do it again. And then it's,
Yeah. It's
each one
good
of those
mindset.
losses that you rack up, it's good. It makes it a lot easier now where I'm at, because I can avoid those things. Now it's
Right.
way more wins than losses.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well, and obviously I want to get to some of those failures here in a minute, and I know you'll be vulnerable and share those, but you're right. You're building a history. And I loved how first off, I thought you were telling my story there for a second with the candy bars and the mowing, and until you got to college, then I knew we weren't talking about the same story, because I am not a college educated person. And so you got me there. The reality though is this: you're 100% right. We're talking about, I'm building a history of trial and error. Let me buy some knives and resell them on Craigslist. That's amazing. Selling candy bars at my mom's office. Like, I remember all of that. And it builds a history, not only of experimenting, but inside, I now can look back and go, well, if I can do that, I can do this. And if I could have success with that, even through the failure, right, of, buying some random infomercial information or stuff, what could I do if I really did it? What could I do if I took this thing seriously? What could I do if I created an actual sales process? What could I do if I created a client experience that leaves people knowing that I'm their guy? Like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. What if I really do this thing? Where before is like, man, if I could do that at 9, or 15, stumbling around with my mower, the sky's the limit. I really feel like that for guys like you and I, we're just like, dude, I'm just now getting started still. After all the success, I haven't even started, really, is what it
100%.
comes down to, right?
Yep.
So let's jump into some of these good and bad decisions, because you kind of alluded to failures, and we're definitely going to get there. I want to start with a good decision, though. What's something that you did that you can look back on, you go, okay, this one moment, this one decision, I did it, and I do it over and over and over again, because it's led me to a lot of where I am today. What is
So in general, the good, I would say a really good decision, and I don't know, perhaps it's a little bit more general, but but honestly believing in myself.
Yeah.
And again, it that might be cliche, but the being able to depend on myself, especially if you can't necessarily depend on other people,
Yeah.
even if you have a great support group around you, if you're
Comes
not,
down to you.
yeah, if you can't trust yourself,
That's right.
you can't depend on yourself, then, I don't know that you're going to get as far as you possibly could. So,
That's right.
the focus on development, challenging myself, and then believing in myself, that would be, I would say, a decision that has really propelled me into all of the things, all of the successes that I've had. And it's literally just choosing you.
Yeah.
I love to give back and share my experiences and help others. The only reason I'm able to do that is because I've sort of focused on, making sure that I'm good, I'm doing well, I'm focused
Right.
on progressing and getting better. If I didn't make that choice on myself, I wouldn't be able to do those other things. So
Right.
it might seem sort of counterintuitive or selfish, but I don't believe it's that.
Yeah.
You know, that decision has paid dividends and helped,
Yeah.
family, friends, and the charities and causes that we give back to. So
Exactly. Yeah, the cup can't overflow if the cup's empty, right?
Sure.
I mean, in essence, and you got to take care of yourself, you got to take care of your family, and then from that nucleus, everything flows out. And so I think it's a great principle. My follow-up question to you on that, Jesse, would be, okay, so believe in yourself. Like, we all have heard that before. Even the way that you said it was like, yes, like I'm kind of like ready to beat my chest and run through a wall, like, ooh, I really was like, okay, choose me. Okay, fine. What's something super practical that you did, or what can the listener do right now? I need to believe in myself more. How do I do that? What does that look like today?
So the being on this podcast, listening to this podcast, for example, education is a lifelong pursuit. It doesn't
That's right.
matter if it's formal or something that's been cobbled together. You said you didn't go to college. I wouldn't have any idea. Obviously, you're very bright, well articulate, successful. The college aspect of things doesn't really matter as much as choosing to learn, choosing to continue to
Exactly.
gain knowledge. That is 100% in my opinion, the most important aspect of things. If you're not continuing to progress, you're stagnant and you're not going to succeed or develop. You can only get so far if that learning mindset isn't there. So, it's one thing that I try to instill in friends and family and coworkers. Like, look, we're doing great. We can always do better. It's not that I'm getting down on you or anything like that. It's that, we've hit this level. Let's take it to this
There we
level.
go.
There's absolutely no reason why we can't. So, that having that mindset is extremely important. And yeah, that's the number one. I'm always reading new books, always listening to new podcasts or watching podcasts, always trying to learn. You only have so much time in the day, especially when you're working a bunch, trying to grow. I mentioned to you before we started recording, it's more vegetables instead of junk food. So
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Believing in yourself obviously can look like filling what you need. Like you gave the reference of being able to give out and even the example of the cup there. I love the learn it all spirit. We've got a member in our group, big GC, not actually very far from you, multiple hundreds of millions, like just a fantastic business, wonderful brand, just super great person. Like when you just meet somebody, and you're like, dang, dude, I want to be like you. And so it's like, man, when I can rub shoulders with a guy like that, or a guy like that wants to be part of my mastermind group, I'm like, okay, we got some good stuff going on here, because
100%.
guy like that says, be a learn it all. Don't be a know it all. Be a learn it all. And he's like constantly putting himself in a situation where he's the low man on the totem pole. We had an event a few months ago, actually here at my house, and he walks in. Nobody really knows that, like, they all know, like all the 30, 40 other business owners in the group, they all know, but they don't really know like I know, because I've had some deep conversations with him, and you would just never know. He walked in, he's curious, he's asking questions. The guy that just crossed over 1 million, who like just skirted into the group, has no idea who he's talking to. And actually what happens is that this guy is asking this guy all the questions because he knows why he's there. And he maybe doesn't need to know like practically, what I need to do in the business. But he showed up because he wanted courage. He wanted energy. He's like the guy that just transferred over 1 million, or they just got over $1 million for the first time. He's got some battle scars. Like you mentioned earlier, he's like, I want to hear the stories. I want to hear because I want to walk away and go back to my team, my big business, and I want to take the juice, right? Because
Yep.
that might be what he's after. So my point is that what you're saying, believe in yourself, kind of know, I mean, what angles to take that in, but being a learn-it-all, as you mentioned, is a super easy, practical way. Podcasts, books, getting around people, like you start leveling up and you start realizing, man, I don't really know much, actually.
There's always something new to learn. I mean, in the way, how fast things are changing, especially with, the adoption of technology, AI, all that. It's,
Right.
there's a lot of competitors that we deal with. One of the reasons why we have success is because we're not analog anymore. We've cut out a lot of the clerical work, the overhead, the
Right.
additional folks that used to be, having to do things.
Yeah.
We've automated it. We've removed a lot of the human error and
right.
has made the customer experience much more streamlined and better for them. Those are things that, we have learned because we choose to continue trying to progress and get better. Even if you are doing 30 million a year, you guys might be doing it old school, and you could be doing 60 million a year if you just tweak a couple things. This little guy that just crossed a million, they already know that because they're starting brand new, they're starting fresh, they're learning new things. So yeah, for sure. It's regardless of where you're at, I don't think you've ever arrived. There's always something new to learn, especially even from someone that you might think is back there.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, you mentioned it before we started. For the listener, I'm going to talk to the listener right now. I'm going to scoot Jesse to the side here. I was talking to Jesse about promoting himself and talking about how great he is before the show started. He goes, I might wrestle with that a little bit, Chaz. I hear you, but that's never really been my approach to toot my own horn. And I think actually a lot of people that listen to the show, for sure, the guys that are in my mastermind group, were like this, because tooting my horn. Okay, well, what does that mean? Okay, yes, I need to let people know about me. I need to grow, but having to learn it all, or that humility to kind of know like where I came from, to be respectful of that, to be respectful of you, and to like do business yet still not be like overbearing, I think is like a little bit of a niche, of people. And it's like, these are the real genuine ones over here. And that's who I want to be around. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but
100%. It's, I think, well, you have the sign on the back, stay humble and hustle. I mean, it's
right.
It's a pretty good thing to stick to, 100%. And it's good to be outgoing, but but you don't want to have someone that's overbearing or controlling, or
Right.
again, the know-it-all. That's, no one knows it all. If you have someone that comes across as arrogant, I don't know. It's, for me at least, it's a turnoff, and it's not as easy to sort of mind meld or find a common ground.
Right.
So
yeah,
I'd rather
Well,
listen.
let's flip the script here and talk about one of those failures you mentioned. There was lots of them. What was a bad decision that you made that you can share that might be applicable for the listener to stay like, hey, stay clear, pothole coming? What is it?
So I'll give you a couple. One is, the first one, and I learned this early on, is don't give up too early. I had starting off, it was kind of, again, one of those entrepreneurial tangents. I had come up with a product that, because I'm a scuba diver, and this was a scuba diving piece of equipment, completely unrelated to all this other stuff that we're doing, but came up with a design for one of these components, and had a provisional patent, a working prototype, and had it sort of chugging along, was very plugged into the industry, and had all these things kind of going for me. I was getting all this like really good feedback, and then I got one person that I respected that was like, nah, I don't really know about that. And I just gave up. And I kick myself for not sticking to it.
Sure.
And I may revisit it down the road when I'm a little bit less busy, but that was a learning experience where I having a little bit of negative feedback, and then just kind of stopping before, taking the no. That it's like all of the things that now, a decade and a half later,
right.
I regret, and I give myself a lot of grief for it, because it was a huge mistake. It was something that could have paid dividends, and even if it didn't, it would have been a cool process to continue to learn and progress as I went down the road. And I gave up on it too early. So one thing, again, going back to, like believe in yourself and all that, regardless of what it is, stick with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of naysayers out there. There's probably butcher it, but a kind of a Texan saying like any jackass can kick down a barn, but it takes a carpenter to build one.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, you get a lot of negative feedback,
Yeah.
but you know, it seems harder. It's a better choice to, you know, pursue, to do. You know what you're doing. Stick with it. Don't listen to the haters. And that was a learning experience for me. Now, you know, we push through. We don't take the negative feedback. Might be great to tweak things, but certainly
Sure.
not give up on anything. That's a
Yeah.
big one. That's sort of a more, I guess, high level or esoteric
Perseverance.
concept, I guess.
Yeah.
And if we can talk about that a little bit more. I've also got another one that's a little bit more.
Yeah. Give it to us. Well, and let me say this to the listener. What Jesse just gave to you is literally in Think and Grow Rich as one of the 31 reasons for failure: lack of consistency or lack of persistence. And so some of it comes down to, you mentioned earlier, ADD. I think most entrepreneurs, diagnosed or undiagnosed, we have this ability to go, you know, lots of things all at once, lots of projects. You know, like I can do a lot of things. So I think, and so I think that some of that's just us and recognizing that we have this tendency to maybe like start something and then kind of let it fall and then jump to the next thing. But the actual like in there nitty gritty persistence that you're talking about is a development. Like you work that muscle. And so I'd love to give that to you if you want to speak on that for a second, and we can move on to your next one. But Think and Grow Rich talks about this. I mean, it is the #1 success principle book, period. And if he's going to list it as one of the reasons people fail is that you can't stick with it, I'm going to listen to Jesse on this one and say, hey, bro, before you give up, I'm not saying that you don't transition or you don't pivot away from things. I think that we're saying the same thing. Like there are some times you got to listen to Mr. Wonderful and you got to take it out back and shoot it. Right. But maybe not today.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to press a little harder before you do that. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It does not come naturally. At least it didn't for me. It was one of those things, again, sort of pushing outside the comfort zone, getting beyond certain things. And again, it was a limitation that I was putting on myself.
Right.
And as a result, you know, nothing really came of it, or at least not yet. It's a good thing to practice. It's necessary.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten to the point where I like to, now I look for those things that sort of make me feel a little like queasy or uncomfortable.
That's right.
Because then I know I'm in the zone. I know I've found where I need to be in order to be progressing. It's after doing it for years or challenging myself, I seek it out. If I'm not feeling that, then I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Something's amiss. I'm too comfortable, and I'm almost having the opposite reaction, which is great. This is where I want to be.
Exactly. What was that second failure that you mentioned? I want to definitely squeeze that in here.
Okay. So the second failure, and this is again a little bit more, I suppose, constructive or whatever. I jumped in on a business venture that with someone that the concept or the business itself was great. The partner was terrible. I learned that the hard way. And going into a partnership, most of these businesses I start on my own by myself. This one, it was an existing business and I bought into it. And this was a guy that it was kind of a friend of a friend. Didn't know him as well as I probably should have. Just what I could, asked around. The due diligence, I suppose, was lacking. The guy was a complete failure. As a result, the business was struggling. I learned later, unfortunately, that the guy that I bought out was the one that was I wish should have been my partner.
For sure.
That was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
You know, going into a partnership, whether you're buying into a company or starting it from the beginning, I would say know that person, set those guidelines and those boundaries, make sure that everybody has expectations set.
Right.
Know who you're getting in business with, because it's like a marriage. And if you choose the wrong person, that's tough. It becomes a drain, a time suck for resources and money. It was a mistake that I will not make again. Yeah. But definitely something to kind of keep in mind for the future. So
yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. And I think that that's applicable. Picking the right person, even hiring the right person. I mean, people in general obviously can disappoint. It doesn't mean that we're always going to pick those things perfectly, but I think that's a great tactic there. I want to move on to our speed round here. I want to come at you in a little different angle. My first one's always the same here, and it's a KPI question. I say it like this. If you can only pick one thing to track forever and ever, Jesse, what would that one thing be?
Profit and loss. I'm
Okay,
just kidding.
and why? Yeah. Hey, look, I've had a few hundred people say that. So
No, it's the P&L, I'd say, is obviously pretty important. That's something that, if your CPA or whoever you have doing it isn't doing it, that's kind of something that I would say is necessary. But that's kind of an obvious thing. I don't want to
Okay.
I don't want to go with that one.
okay, where are we going?
This one I really like, and it's unsolicited customer feedback.
Mm.
So, and I say unsolicited because I want to get genuine, honest opinions from how we are doing things. Now, I mentioned earlier that, we're very customer centric. We're value focused. We're developing relationships that we want to keep beyond, just one transaction.
Yep.
And having that feedback, whether it's good, that's awesome because we know we're on the right track. The bad stuff, also great because it's actionable, and we're getting it from someone who just experienced what we've sort of provided for them.
Sure.
Sometimes it's difficult to sort of see the forest from the trees. When you're in it, you might not even be realizing that you're overlooking something that's very important.
Right.
And getting that feedback from the customer, the person that has just received that experience or that product from you is a big one. And the unsolicited customer feedback is incredibly important as we build and improve our businesses.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting that you would pick unsolicited, and because there's not really a way to get it. And so is that even a measurement of, like, if we're not getting any? Is that like something that you pay attention to?
If we're not getting any, I would say that's also a sign that something needs to change.
Yeah.
It might be great. Everybody's busy,
Right.
Very rarely are you going to get customer feedback unless the experience was fantastic or absolutely terrible. And typically, if someone's upset, you're going to get feedback more often than you would if it's fantastic.
Sure.
So with a company that has a lot of really good reviews or really good feedback, that's usually a good sign. That's typically how if I'm trying to search for someone that, for a product or service, I'm going to do a little bit of research. I'm going to see how they're rated. Do they have good reviews?
Yeah.
And is the substance of those reviews good, or does it look like
Right.
they just stuffed them with, a bunch of garbage or friends or family or something like that? Are these real reviews? So I would say that's important. Now we do ask for feedback, but the unsolicited stuff is the best in my opinion. So if you're getting the feedback, fantastic. If you're not getting any feedback, you need to make an adjustment, because that in of itself is probably a sign that you're not on the right track. So
yeah, very good. Jesse, what book would you recommend, or maybe even a resource? You mentioned that you're a big podcast guy. What resource would you recommend for a business owner who's looking at?
Well, this podcast is great. Like I mentioned before we started recording, the content that I love about your podcast in particular is a lot of the things that we discuss is actionable. So, for someone that's getting started, it's good stuff, because there are actual things that, like, in my position, whether, you're the 6-figure to 7-figure or 7 to 8, whatever, there are things that everybody can learn from it. Another podcast I really like is Tim Ferriss' show. That's a little bit sort of more, I guess, conceptual, but it's still very motivating.
Yeah.
Again, I'm more about the vegetables than the junk food.
That's right.
There are a couple books that I liked. Okay. One is Range. I have it right here. Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World by David Epstein.
Okay.
That one I really liked. I read it last year, and it kind of stuck with me, because he turned the concept that a lot of people think of, if I really want to get really good at one thing, or I want to be great at X, I got to just really focus on that one thing and drill down deep. And that book gives a lot of examples. And it kind of, I don't know, maybe it spoke to me a lot more, just the way I am, but I'm all over the place, as we talked about. And I consider myself kind of a jack of all trades, maybe a master of none, but what I have noticed is a lot of the different concepts or things that I've found entertaining or intriguing or interesting, there's sort of this cross-pollination aspect of things where something over here impacts something over here, and they come together in a way that might be unexpected, but it's very helpful.
Yep.
And that book kind of goes into how kind of the culmination of learning in different things, whether that's competitive or or otherwise. It really spoke to me. I think it's a great book.
Great.
Another one that's a little bit different would be Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Okay. Yeah.
Easy read. It's only like 100 pages, but I'm a believer in the Stoic philosophy and those sort of things that are instilled and necessary. The perseverance, sticking with something, getting through it, that pain. He's the emperor. I mean, of Rome, one of the best of the Pax Romana. A king of kings, if you will. So I would say, if you're watching this podcast, that'd probably be a pretty good book to read. So
yeah, that's great. I appreciate that perspective and even the usage of the king there, because you're right. There's different levels, right? And I think that we all recognize that, and we're all trying to get to the next level, whatever that is for each one of us. What are your thoughts on intentionally networking or masterminding with other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it kind of seems like a no-brainer. Obviously, I prefer to, if I can, try to be in a room where I feel like the dumbest one, if you will, because I want to learn some stuff. I want to challenge myself.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I like to go. I'll be, in a seminar tomorrow for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
You've always got something to learn, pursuing that mindset, meeting with people that are like-minded, even if it's not in the same industry per se.
Right.
Like what we were mentioning before the podcast, the business in general, there are some concepts that are applicable to everything. Your foundational things, they can be applied to all sorts of stuff, and that's it's incredibly important to be meeting new people and learning new things, and getting out there with someone that even be on this podcast is fantastic, because chatting with you is fun, and we do have a lot of similar stuff going on, and it's inspiring, honestly.
Yeah.
It gives me a little bit of juice to go out and keep doing more. So
That's right. Yeah. That last point that you made there, even in a scenario like this, where we get to rub shoulders for just a few minutes here today, it can give you sometimes just the juice that's necessary for just another day to keep going, like that persistence that you talked about. And it's funny that as entrepreneurs, we don't really have people like that. At least I found in my story, it's like I operated at a certain frequency where, my buddies, or the guys that I knew at church, or the guys that I knew, there's just a gap, man. Like, let's just be honest. Like, I'm just not like them, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing about me that's better or about them that's worse. It's just, I'm different. You're different. Okay.
Yep.
We're together. We're the same. We're not the same as them. Okay. So fine. So I want to find people who are like me, not so that I can keep a narrow, like, this is only what I believe, but I want to be around people who are thinking big and going after multiple businesses, or going after even one business, but like, how do we take it to 100x? And it's like, okay, well, if I can get around guys like that are like me, then it's like I start, like, compounding, effort, like really, really quickly, because even if I'm just in the room and I tell Jesse I'm going to do something, and I know he's going to be in the room the next time, and I haven't done it yet, like, I'm going to stay up all freaking night to get it done, whatever it was, or over the year.
Yep.
There's just so much impact when you get around the juice, as you call it. I love it.
Yeah. Getting back to the competitive aspect of things. If I can see that you're doing it, then, I feel that I could probably do it, or at least I should try.
That's right. That's right.
The guy that did the sub 4 minute mile or whatever,
Right.
once he crossed that barrier, then within months, someone else did it, but it had never been done before. It's like, as long as you can see someone else is doing it, that inspiration, it's in itself allows you to rock and roll. So it's important. It's important to be around people that are like-minded and pursuing to do better, go further.
That's right. I got a question for you that might be a little bit unique. Entrepreneurs that, have a family are listening. Some don't have a family, but there's this dynamic of obsession that we all relate to. We've talked about it actually here on the show, how we go all in on things. How is it that you've been able to go all in on all these things that you have your hand to, but yet still have those other values and be able to press into those other areas of your life at the same time?
I would say it's not easy, especially at first, especially when you're starting out and you're grinding and, you're wearing a bunch of hats.
That's right.
It's definitely not easy to have a good balance. Certainly when you're younger, you got more energy. You can get out there and really grind. Having a good support group, also very important. a lot of my success, I wouldn't be able to do it without my wife.
Sure.
She hustles herself. She busts her butt, and without her or support, it wouldn't be possible to do what I've done. And the thing that's important is it's not always like that necessarily. At least at the beginning, when you're starting and really having to sort of make sacrifices. I mean, social life is out the window, but when you've got your eye on the prize, that the goal, it's important. And now, as we're kind of gotten to this a level that we're at, I have I've hired people to do a lot of these things for me. Even though it seems like I'm doing a lot more, I have more free time, more ability to spend with my 2 young children, my wife. When we talked about the critical mass, rolling that little snowball as it gets bigger, it's now paying dividends, and I'm seeing it, and the proof is in the pudding, and that's inspirational. But also, as I transition, I'm turning 40 this year. It's a big one. I'm a little scared about it. And I also, instead of continuing to really grow or do new things, I've set a goal for myself to kind of transition to be a little bit more, give back, have more time with friends and family, and enjoying sort of the pursuits of all of these things that are sort of a means to an end. And it's great because, again, I'm seeing it. It's rewarding. Yeah. But those sacrifices initially are important, and you got to stick with it. Don't get discouraged because they eventually pay off. So
yeah, you gave some really, really great dynamics there between the support of your wife as well as just, I think of the balance word, the dirty little balance word. First off, it doesn't exist. Like you said, especially at the beginning, is that you kind of just have to get on the same page. You have to get into alignment, and maybe there's certain seasons where you're dialed in here or dialed in there, but that takes alignment. It takes her being on the same page. And then obviously along the way, you doing things to honor her and still be a good dad, all that fun stuff. So thank you for that. I got one last question here for you.
All right, let's hear it.
You said you're turning 40 this year. I want to know, Jesse, if you could whisper in the younger Jesse's ear, what would you say?
Try harder, faster, sooner. That's going back to that initial mistake that I'd made.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, and it doesn't only have to be that one specific instance, but starting earlier and believing in yourself and trying, don't taking no, those things, they'd be paying even more dividends. Who knows where I'd be if I'd started even earlier. But it's tough. It's not easy to just kind of flip that switch. Again, if you're starting early, that's great. If you're listening to this podcast, you're already on the right path. It's, but that'd be it. Start earlier, start sooner, keep grinding, keep learning. Because honestly, I'm having a blast. It's fun. Yeah. It might not seem like it. I'm working a heck of a lot more than I was for anybody else, but I'm liking it. This is I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So
I love what you said. Get started, sooner, faster, better, stronger. You didn't say get started younger. You said get started sooner. And so for even the guy who's 41 listening right now, right? You're like, go, dude. Go. Don't wait. Do it. Right?
Yes, absolutely. It's again, believing in yourself, making the choice. I think part of it, I had a really cushy job, but one of the things I was an insurance adjuster for a period of time. Extremely beneficial for what we're doing now to have that kind of knowledge.
That's right.
It's not an easy job.
Yeah.
But it had some really good benefits, very cushy. I could, even though you're grinding away for someone else, you have a nice safety net. It's kind of comfortable. It's safe.
Right.
It's not my personality. I could not be doing it still. I'm glad that I left, but certainly making a jump out of the industry as I was kind of learning and pursuing to a commission only job from something that had great health benefits, great insurance, all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
You gotta make some money.
You eat what you kill.
Exactly. 100%. And that was a leap, but by doing it, believing in myself that I could do it, it sort of has spun into all these other things that we're doing now, and it's worth it. So,
well, Jesse, man, I'm sure a guy like you and a guy like myself that have a lot of similarities and differences, but I'm sure we could go for hours in all seriousness, and it would be enjoyable for the both of us. You've been incredible, man. Thank you for sharing your story. I want to know how the listener can connect with you. First off, if they're in your area of Texas and they need a roof or they need exteriors, they need solar, if they need insurance, like all the things that you got going on, how can they find you? And then if they're a business owner, how can they come find you, pick your brain, get some value that way?
So I'm on LinkedIn. If you message me on LinkedIn, just look up Jesse Summerlin. There's actually a couple of them in the Metroplex. I'm
You're
the Jesse Summerlin. Yeah. Entrepreneur, investor, father. If you shoot me a message or try to connect, just mention the podcast and I'd be happy to connect and answer questions that anybody would have. And then, yeah, if you happen to be in Metroplex, Dwell Roofing and Exteriors is the main company. Have some others, and I'm sure when this goes up, you'll list them for me, which I really appreciate.
Of course.
And I'm happy to answer any questions, happy to help, happy to give back and help other folks on their journey, because it's been fun. It's not over. It's still going, still learning.
That's right.
So yeah.
Grateful, but not done. Jesse,
Yes,
you've been
thanks for having me
absolutely incredible. Thank you for being here. Blessings on your family, on your businesses, all the things that you have put your hand to here in 2023. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.